Many experts agree that Ofgem contributed to the worsening of the energy crisis over the last 2 years. Here's three of the key things that Ofgem did to make the energy crisis worse. Hi everyone, I'm Richard Winstone with Over 50s Money. If you want to follow more of these videos, please like and subscribe to the Over 50s Money YouTube channel and turn on the notifications by clicking the little bell button below. Thank you. Now, no one is saying that Ofgem caused the energy crisis. It's not their fault that this happened. I have done a video of the causes of the energy crisis, and you can find a link to that at the end of this video. But what people are saying is that Ofgem's actions over the last decade or so led up to and caused a worsening impact on the energy crisis. I personally agree with that, and I think there are three key reasons that can be justified. So the first reason I think Ofgem worsened the energy crisis is because of the way the energy market was set up, the retail energy market where we get our gas and electric. If you go back to 2003, there were 6 energy suppliers. If you go to 2015, 2016, when I started getting into energy, there were about 30 energy suppliers. And if you go to 2018, 2019, at the peak of the energy market, there were close to 100 energy suppliers. Now, this was deliberate by Ofgem to get more companies involved in the energy market because that creates more competition and it drives prices down. And successfully, they did that very well. Prices were driven down, but they didn't do it in a stable way. You ended up with 100 energy suppliers, give or take, and a lot of them had no financial resilience. And whilst it was great for customers to have cheaper energy bills and have the prices coming down, the energy companies that we were going to weren't going to be able to survive any sort of turmoil. Now, usually in a normal market, that wouldn't make a big difference. If you had 100 new entrants into the market and they had no money, then they could get no customers because marketing was expensive. You have to pay to market, and that's how you get customers. So having 70 or 80 new energy suppliers that are small with no financial backing shouldn't have made a massive difference. But Ofgem wanted it to make a difference. They wanted these cheap energy suppliers to be visible to customers. And they did something that was widely frowned upon in the market. In 2017, 2018, they implemented something called the whole of market view. What that was a rule on price comparison sites where they forced every energy price comparison site to show every tariff available, regardless of whether the company, the energy supplier, had a contract with the price comparison site. Now that is dangerous. It was dangerous, and they've revoked it since because they saw what happened. What happened was that all of these little energy suppliers that had no money, they didn't bother getting contracts with price comparison sites. And in a normal world, the price comparison site wouldn't show their tariffs. They'd just go, no, we don't have a deal with you. People can't switch to you through our website. We're not getting paid for you switching, for us sending you customers. We're not giving you the marketing space. That's how it normally works. But when Ofgem forced price comparison sites to show every tariff in the market, regardless of if they could switch through the price comparison site or not, it meant all of these cheap energy suppliers came to the top of the price comparison sites. So if I was a brand new supplier, all I'd have to do is spend 2 hours online, and I could go through Compare the Market, I could go through USwitch or Money Supermarket's website, and I could find the cheapest tariff in every region in the country. And all I have to do is create a tariff that is £1 cheaper in each region, and all of a sudden I am the top of Compare the Market's energy price comparison table. Hundreds of thousands of people every month would see my company name and my tariff. Now, it would have a little grey button next to it saying you can't switch through Compare the Market because I don't have a contract with Compare the Market. But you've now seen my tariff. You know I'm the cheapest in the country. You're going to head to my website. And that's what all these small energy suppliers did. They got tens of thousands of customers because Ofgem's rule basically made marketing free for them. All they had to do was be slightly cheaper than some other energy suppliers, and they'd appear in the top 10. There were periods where price comparison sites like Compare the Market and USwitch had no switchable tariffs on their first page. You'd have to go to page 2 to be able to switch to a tariff through them. That's great for these brand new energy suppliers, and it's good for customers who want cheap deals. But what are you getting for that cheap deal? You're getting a company that's run by 2 people, possibly, who has no experience in the energy market and no financial resilience, and they're just looking to get you in as a customer and get your money through the door. It wasn't a good setup. It took about a year and a half for Ofgem to realise it was a bad setup. So for about a year and a half, this whole of market view was forced upon price comparison sites to be their default view. Eventually, Ofgem went, well, you should still show everything, but maybe not as default. So have a tick box where customers can see everything if they want to, but you don't have to show that tick box as default. It's a much better system because those customers that are looking for a cheap energy supply or the cheapest in the market can tick that box, see the cheapest, and go to their website. Whereas everyone else who wants someone that's at least a little bit trusted, but and are still looking to make a saving, can just go to the price comparison sites and see switchable tariffs with financially resilient energy suppliers. So yeah, doing that, Ofgem ended up setting up a market that had a lot of small energy suppliers that all of a sudden got tens of thousands of customers and didn't really have the financial backing to stand any hardships. So that was the first thing I think Ofgem did that led up to a worsening of the energy crisis. That led to a worsening because it meant when the energy crisis hit, all of those suppliers collapsed, or a lot of them collapsed, and we have to pay that bill. So every time an energy supplier collapses, it costs other energy suppliers something, and those costs are passed on to the consumers in our energy bills in the price cap. I think it equated to something like £95 of your energy bill was for supplier of last resort. But that's before you add on profit on top of that £95. There'd be headroom allowance and VAT. So in total, it probably came to about £110 of our energy bill went towards this mistake by Ofgem. So that's £110 worsening by Ofgem. The next big mistake, and I think this was a cardinal sin, it was something I was very angry about at the time, was Ofgem's lack of emergency protocols. They have no emergency procedures. Everything hits the fan and Ofgem just go about business as usual. And that was a disaster. That's what caused 30 energy suppliers to collapse. So you guys may have seen in the previous video, I did a timeline. I said in August 2021, Ofgem announced the October 2021 price cap. At the same time, wholesale prices started rocketing. The crisis became apparent and everyone was aware we're going into a crisis. Wholesale costs are going to cost more than the price cap, and therefore energy suppliers are going to lose money on every customer. That's when energy suppliers stopped offering fixed rate tariffs. That's when everything went bad. What Ofgem should have done was have some sort of emergency procedure to go, everything's going terrible. The cost of energy is more expensive to the supplier than they're able to charge the customer. So now every one customer is a liability. So they've got 9 million customers. They're losing millions upon millions of pounds every year. Not all energy suppliers will be able to deal with that. What Ofgem should have done was go, we're going to change the price cap immediately. It's an emergency procedure. We're not going to go to our normal processes. We're not going to put in the October price cap we announced. That's not what they did. They went business as usual. So they said, look, we've announced this October price cap. It's going to be £1,200. Deal with it. And you'll have to live with that until April the following year. And then we'll increase it up to £2,000 so you can start getting some of your money back. And then later on, they added in backwardation, which is a jargon term. I'll put a link in the description below so that you can see. I've got a article that explains backwardation, but they added the backwardation cost on later, so energy suppliers could reap back some of the losses they made. But that meant that energy suppliers were having to lose hundreds of pounds per customer. So if you're an energy supplier with 1 million customers or with 5 million customers, you're losing hundreds of millions, maybe billions of pounds, because you've got so many customers that you can't even charge enough for. You're paying more for their energy than they are. And that caused over 30 suppliers to collapse. It all happened pretty quickly. I think most of them collapsed before Christmas, but the wholesale costs kept going up and Ofgem did nothing to try and help. Eventually, the price cap caught up, which is great, and Ofgem realised doing price caps every 6 months is dangerous. We should do one every 3 months. That took them a year and a half to implement. So the crisis started in August 2021. The first quarterly price cap was January 2023. That's the most recent one. That was the one that went up to £4,000. So yeah, Ofgem are slow. They don't have any emergency protocols. They don't have any speed other than dawdle. And that worsened the energy crisis. Nothing happened quick enough to protect energy suppliers when they needed it. And the changes they started making, Ofgem have been implementing now, would have been great for energy suppliers back then, but now energy suppliers are okay, and it's just making energy suppliers more profitable now, which is why it's partially why we're seeing record profit levels. Ofgem are making a bunch of changes to make energy suppliers more financially resilient. They're giving them more allowances and more income per customer, and that's for the protection of consumers. We're better off if energy suppliers don't collapse. I'm going to do another video on Ofgem numbers shortly, so keep an eye out for that because I think you'll find that really interesting. But yeah, so that's the second thing they did. They didn't react quick enough, and it caused energy suppliers to collapse. That collapse caused about £1.8 billion worth of expense, which we pay. That's on our energy bills. So that worsened the crisis again. The third thing that Ofgem did that worsened the energy crisis was they have a poorly designed price cap. Now, the price cap in its implement was a good idea. Okay, they wanted to stop energy suppliers taking advantage of disengaged customers. I understood it. Energy suppliers hated it, and basically I like anything energy suppliers hate because it's good for the customer. So it worked, but it wasn't designed for a crisis. There was no thought process to go, what happens if there is an energy crisis and energy suppliers stop offering fixed rate tariffs? All of them across the board, no one offers a fixed rate tariff. That means everyone is on the variable rate tariff, the price cap. Is that fair? Does the price cap work? Is it a good model? I think very quickly looking at it, people would have said no, but they didn't ask those questions, so they didn't have that answer. Certain elements of the price cap are calculated as a percentage of all of the other costs. Now, you guys hear me harp on about this a lot, so if you're the consistent follower, I'm sorry you're getting repetitive information. But the headroom allowance, the EBIT, the profit allowance are both percentages of the price cap, of the other costs in the price cap. So as those other costs increase, energy suppliers are getting more headroom, more extra allowance that doesn't really account for anything, and more profit. So their profit per household went from £22 in 2021 to £79 at the peak of the crisis at the beginning of 2023 per household. Not only that, they went from 14 million households across the UK on the price cap to 28 million. It doubled. So they've got twice as many customers, and they're getting on the price cap, and they're getting almost 4 times as much profit per customer because they're on the price cap rather than a fixed rate tariff that is cheaper. So their profits have gone through the roof on retail energy. And that was by design. That was by Ofgem's design. Their headroom's gone through the roof as well. So this extra allowance gap at the top is also gone. It went from something like £12, £14, I think it was, up to, I think it went to £42. So that tripled. And on top of those things, obviously, as the price cap went up, VAT went up. So we're all paying the government more money on our energy bills as well. VAT is 5%. So if the price cap was £4,000, we were paying, £200 on that, and just in VAT? And each of these percentage elements worsens the crisis. The costs going up are the costs going up. That's bad, but that's not something Ofgem can control. But then saying these additional allowances are percentages of these other costs means as they go up, the allowances go up as well. And it's proportionately, but it's not fair to consumers. There was no reason energy suppliers couldn't stick with £20 profit per customer. But at £80 profit per customer, our energy bills are £60 more expensive, plus the 5% VAT on top of that. Same with the EBIT. The price cap could have been brought down by a couple of £100 just by not having those things as percentages. And those couple of £100, whilst we were protected by the government's energy price guarantee, it came out of government funds. The government's funded by tax. That's us. We pay that anyway. So all of these government policies they put into place, freezing the tax brackets for the next 3-4 years, all of this stuff they're doing to squeeze more money out of the public, that's because they've had to pay for our energy bills, and we're eventually going to have to pay that back. The only ones that really won out of this are the energy suppliers, because we paid the 2,500, the government paid the other 1,700 on top. Energy suppliers still got 4,200. So whilst everyone was talking about the price cap and the energy price guarantee protecting us down to £2,500, that didn't stop energy suppliers getting the £4,200. They still reaped benefits from this, and overall, we're still going to pay for it anyway. So sorry, that was a little rant there, but those are the 3 things, in my opinion, that Ofgem did, the biggest 3 things that Ofgem did to cause a worsening of the energy crisis. They're still implementing changes right now that I think are going to make things harder to get back to where we were. they're trying to make energy suppliers more investable, more financially resilient. And the only way to make a company more investable is to make it more profitable. The way to make it more financially resilient is A, to say you have to ring fence some finances, and B, give them more money. Tell them to ring fence that money. So yeah, they're making more changes now, which means it is going to be unlikely that we'll get back down to a £1,000 price cap. I think possibly ever. But we'll just have to see how these things play out. I've got the petition going. We've already agreed amongst ourselves that we're going to expand the reach of this petition and work on more of Ofgem's consultations with the hope that we can bring the price cap down further. If you guys have any comments, think I've said anything wrong, any questions, I could probably talk about this for an hour, and I want to try and keep these videos as tight as possible. I know this one's a bit of a longer one, but there's just a lot to be said. So if you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you. Email me at richard@over50smoney.com. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video on your socials, turn on the notifications, all of that stuff. Thank you.